Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Sigman.
And I'm Mike Messinio.
And this is the Weekly Movie Throwdown, a discussion show where each week we talk about a film that fits into our overall monthly theme. This month, that theme is November Noir, specifically Veronica Lake and Barbara Stanwyck. And this week, we're wrapping things up with another Barbara Stanwyck film. It's The Strange Love of Martha Ivers from 1946, directed by Louis Treadwell. It's going to be an interesting way to wrap this up because it has some of the tropes that we've seen throughout and some interesting new ones that we haven't seen so far. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not the movie that I expected.
Yep.
I'll say.
Before we get into it, though, here's a little news for you.
Yeah, this is more like a follow-up on other stuff that I've talked about. But I was just reading an article about Spielberg, who was one of the executive producers of Hamnet, which is coming out next week. The new Chloe Zhao movie. He talked about why he got involved in the project. He wanted to make sure that this movie got into theaters. And it was important to him. And he was discussing kind of what we were talking about last week, this idea that, blockbusters make it into theaters, but it's important that movies like this find a way into the big screen. And clearly I agree with that argument. Again, we've discussed the choices that consumers have to make to go see things. But I do think that it's important that all of these movies have the opportunity to be seen on a big screen. And when we talk about what we saw this week, I'll probably revisit this because I saw a movie that I wouldn't necessarily have seen on a big screen, but chose to go see it. So, but yeah, so I am coming in that I just wish it was easier to choose to go see dramas on the big screen now, because you're trying to weigh that bang for your buck thing.
I wonder what the landscape would look like, and maybe this is already happening and I'm just not aware of the films, but if somebody like Spielberg got into producing smaller films more often, like what would that do for the industry? Maybe nothing, I don't know, but having that name there, carries some weight. And he produces just about everything, so
it's true. But you're right. He produces a lot of things, but he's never thrown his weight around in that way. It's true. Like he quietly produces everything, but it's never top line. Where I noticed when I saw the trailer for this, his name is kind of top line in terms of presenting it. Maybe that's what they're trying. Maybe they're trying to see if he can bring people in to see it, which I think is a good way for him to use his clout. I mean, he really believes in this movie. He thinks it's beautiful, and it looks beautiful. I mean, the trailer looks like it's really something. So we'll see if it carries any weight at all.
Yeah, by all accounts, this is an early front runner for Oscars, for Chloe Zhao and for Best Picture. And
just following up, the point is her last movie when she won Best Picture for Nomadland, no one saw that movie in the theater because the period of time it came out. It's like, it would be nice if one of her movies actually gets out into the big screen. The Eternals doesn't count, so to speak, because that is what it is. But yeah, one of her own movies to get onto the big screen. So I'm rooting for it.
Remember that COVID Oscars? It was like, so weird. Was it at Penn Station or the train station or something in LA?
Yeah, it was definitely held in an odd venue. I don't remember exactly where it was. It did look like a hotel lobby. It's like,
it was so weird. They're just those little like booths of like people but the thing I remember about it is that Steven Soderbergh directed it. So it had like these amazing like moving cameras and it was like very fun to watch, but it was just so weird because it was in that little, it was so empty.
I think they should do that every 5 years. They should have like a classic director come in and direct the Oscars. Like they could have Guillermo del Toro do it next year and it'll just be a horror Oscars, like whatever. I think that would be, I would totally tune into that. That's exciting.
Well, maybe we always say it would be interesting to see how a bunch of different directors handle the same material. Right. Maybe the Oscars is that material.
Yeah, I think they should let Michael Bay direct the Oscars. Everyone comes in on a zip line and things just explode at random moments. Like, that would be fantastic. I would absolutely tune in for that.
That's a great way to get viewership up. Explosions.
I think so. And side segue into explosions, I guess, or things blowing up. Just following up on the other thing we're talking about, which is the sale of Warner Brothers, which is about to blow up. See, that was a poor segue, but I tried. Looks like the three bidders are Paramount, which we expected, Comcast, and Netflix. And talk about the opposite of a Sophie's choice here. I end up having to root for Netflix in this just because they're the only company that doesn't already own too much, like a major movie studio already. I mean, Comcast already owns NBC and Universal. Paramount already owns Paramount already owns Paramount and all that goes with that. Just don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, I don't feel like there's any good outcome from this right now. It's pretty concerning.
Well, I have a lot to say about this.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. The three bids came in yesterday, and they're preliminary bids. Other people can still bid, other companies, and the big concern now is like, is Paramount backed by Saudi Arabian money? So that's come into play. Ellison has a relationship with Trump, and so I guess like the FCC chair or the Trade Commission chairman would have to sign off on this, like he did when Skydance bought Paramount. The thing with Netflix that I've been hearing a lot about is that they're very stingy with their licensing, and what that means is if they acquire like the entirety of the Warner Brothers catalog, 100 years plus, you wouldn't be able to see Warner Brothers films anywhere but on Netflix. That's 100 years of like film history.
Whoa, I did not hear
completely
that.
unavailable.
I withdraw my bid. I'm gonna vote for none of. I'm vote for none of the above, like Brewster's Millions. That's what I'm going for.
It's also interesting that Paramount is the only company so far that wants to buy the entirety of Warner Brothers Discovery. Comcast and Netflix both just want streaming and the film studio arm. So the TV stuff would have to spin off into another company, which I think Warner Brothers wants to do anyway. But that seems to make a big mess for it if somebody like Comcast or Netflix comes in and they're not going to want to buy those assets. So yeah, I mean, it's TBD, but it doesn't look good.
Yeah, I don't want to get off on a sidetrack here, but I will just say that Paramount buying Warner Brothers with Saudi money may be on the Mad Libs of the worst sentence I've ever heard. So, doesn't feel great.
Not good. The other thing is that it's that consolidation of power. I mean, we saw this in the publishing industry, like first Penguin buys Random House, then they try to go after Simon and Schuster, and that was like a bridge too far. It's going to create far fewer opportunities for artists to sell things. It's just not good. That any kind of consolidation of power like that is bad news. And, there's the potential for this to become a monopoly and see like a lawsuit against it if that's the way it goes with Paramount. But
yeah, this whole idea of someone, a company that is basically close to an administration, but also backed by a regime that we have no control over and doesn't have the greatest record of openness. It just creates kind of a black box of problems that just feels like the opposite of what making entertainment should be like. It just, you look at a lot of doors that don't look like good choices.
And unfortunately, with the administration we currently have, very pro acquisitions and mergers. So, and with Ellison being so friendly with Trump, it seems like, they're probably the front runner for this, as far as getting the okay to do it. So,
yeah. And of course, as we've seen this week, a president and it also is friendly with the money that might be coming in to help buy it. So I mean, clearly they would be fine with all of that. Not necessarily great for us, but I'm sure great for them somehow. But that would definitely
not
worry
great
me.
For cinema.
No, I don't see.
The other thing with Netflix being the winner is that, Ted Sarandos famously is saying that movie theaters are obsolete. He doesn't believe anything should be shown.
I did read though that part of the deal would be them committing to release Warner Brothers movies in theaters. But again,
good
people, I mean, who can say what comes down the road? But that is what I read, which is why I begrudgingly was like, okay, I could probably live with at least that. But
And what is that window, of is it a week? Like Jay Kelly is playing at my local theater right now. Probably go see it after we do this, but um it's there for a week, 2 weeks maybe, and then it's going to go out on Netflix. So like would Weapons have a 2-week window at the movie theaters? Would Sinners, would one battle after another? Like
Yeah.
that's insane.
And, adding to that, you're right, because you said Jay Kelly's playing by you. Well, it's not playing by me at all. We've already discussed this. Like, there's no theaters here around me that show it. When I went to go see Hitman, I had to go all the way out to the Hamptons. I don't. You're right. So there's just too many questions about where that would go.
We'll see what happens. It's still kind of early, but I mean, in my gut, I can see that it's going the way of Paramount already, just with the track record and the relationships. So we'll see. Hopefully, it's going to work out for filmmakers and moviegoers. But
I mean, I
things
hate
don't
to
seem
say
work
it,
out
but it
for
really
people these
does feel
days.
like buying the Warner Brothers movie studio is the afterthought. That being able to buy CNN would probably be more of a feather, because then you now have a friendly company controlling CBS and CNN. But this is not a conspiracy podcast, nor is it a political podcast, so we will not discuss that.
Yeah. Well, there are some conspiracies potentially in our film this week. So why don't we move into that and let's talk about The Strange Love of Martha Ivers.
Yes, let's first start by talking about how this is probably one of the worst titles for a movie that we have done. Because not only is it not a great title, that people kept asking me what the movie was, and I kept forgetting the title, which is a bad sign for a title. But secondly, it has nothing to do with the movie. What on earth is the strange love? Like, I'm not even sure she loves anybody at all.
Yeah.
So what a ridiculous title. The original title of the short story is based on what's called Love Lies Bleeding, which we already know is a great title because a movie with that name came out last year, and that was a good title. 2 years
Yeah.
ago. Good
Yeah.
title for a
2023.
movie. Why they change it to
Great movie.
why they changed it to the Strange Love of Martha Ivers, I will never understand. Did you get to the
I think
bottom of
there
that? Did
was
you see it?
no, I don't know
I could not find anything on why they named it that, and I really wanted to know because I think that is a terrible movie title.
Yeah, and it wasn't the first title change from Love Lies Bleeding. There was another one, like a working title that I don't remember what it was, but it went through 2 iterations before it landed on this. And what's even more ridiculous is like there was very minimal marketing for this, and the print ads in the newspapers just said say her name, and then the radio spots were just like filled with someone whispering Martha Ivers. So it's like that poor title leads to very poor marketing. And I did not look up the box office on this. I just looked it up, 3.25 million. So I don't know if that marketing did it any favors by or the title itself, because yeah, it's the strange title of Martha Ivers is what I call it. It's very confusing. But that's where we are. And let me just give a little synopsis of it. This is a story of, big surprise, Martha Ivers, who is
Really? I didn't see that coming.
a wealthy and controlling woman who has a childhood crime that kind of shaped her life and her marriage to her husband, Walter. She has a friend, Sam Masterson, who comes back to town after 17 or 18 years. And his return kind of digs up this past that they've been trying to forget, because he, like Walter, her husband, was a part of this crime that was committed. So they think Sam has come back to blackmail them, Martha and Walter. And that's kind of the premise of the film. It's all about the past. And, that's a big thing with noir. I was thinking about all of the things that we've looked at this month. And 3 of the 4 involve someone coming back to their hometown, whether it's the Blue Dahlia or Clash by Night or this. That's a big thing in noir is like the past, and they really lean into that here with the writing, with talking about Lot and his wife throughout. So it's quite interesting. And Out of the Past will come out a year later, which is another well-known noir all about the past. So there are a lot of the sort of common noir tropes throughout this. There's kind of the femme fatale, I guess, but there's the betrayal, the mistrust, the sort of like nihilism. It really fits the template a lot more than Clash by Night.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say was when we finally got to this movie, I mean, I'm on record when we watched Clash by Night saying that was not a noir movie, that it was more like a melodrama. But the last two movies we've seen, like now 3 in a row, are making me actually accept now that melodrama and noir do go together, that they can. I still don't think Clash by Night was a noir movie, but this one, which is also very much melodrama, does fit in noir tropes. I mean, mainly because there is a murder, which is important. But other than that, you're right. It covers the main themes that I think that noir usually cover, which is, I mean, first of all, there's rain. There's always rain somehow in a good noir
Sure.
movie. But fate, like the idea of fate, most noir hinges on that, feeling like there's an inevitable fate for a character that's coming for them, regardless of what they what they try to do to stop it. That it's just barreling towards you, and this very much plays on the idea of fate and trying to escape a past, but it never really leaving you. In this case, it's a little overt because it's an actual person in the guise of fate coming back to haunt you. But it was already there, just waiting to blow up anyway, which we see from the opening of the movie.
It's really a kind of juggling act for Martha and Walter. It turns out they were the ones who were there at the beginning with the inciting incident, which we should say is Martha's aunt is hit with a cane and falls down a flight of stairs. I wholeheartedly believe she had it coming because at the time she was beating a cat, and I'm kind of glad she was killed, which I don't like saying, but fuck her. So they were there. Martha did it, and then her friend Walter, his father is her tutor. We should say that Martha's aunt runs Ivertown. Like Iverstown is where they live. It's named after the family. The aunt's daughter fathered Martha, or like gave birth to Martha when she was with someone who worked in the mill. And right,
I think what I'm getting is that her father must have been married to or with the aunt's daughter. That's how that would work, right? But we don't know if they were married.
In quotes.
Yeah, we don't really know exactly what that is. We don't know if anybody was married, or because then what happened to the mother, which we don't even know. Yeah, I think you got it.
But ultimately, it's a tale of like classism. Like the Ivers family runs this town. The daughter had either an affair or some kind of love affair with a lowly mill worker named Smith. They gave birth to a child, and that was like a blemish on the Ivers' name. So they took the daughter, or they took Martha, adopted her. I guess the mother died. I forget what
we don't know.
There,
actually, so I said, I actually don't know what happened to the mother at all. They mentioned that the father died, but they don't mention what happened to the mother at all.
So they end up, Martha lives with her quote unquote aunt, who is a real taskmaster, not a very good person. And, the idea is that Martha wants to get away. She hates being underfoot like this, with this taskmaster who's played by Judith Anderson, by the way, who was Mrs. Danvers in Rebecca. So always kind of bringing that energy to it. And she and Sam, who is the man who comes back, you know what? Let's start by saying the beginning is all in a flashback.
Yes.
So, or at least set in 1926. So we see Martha, Walter, and Sam as children when this inciting incident occurs. Sam is trying to get Martha to run away with him, and they start to. They're going to hop a train and join the circus, which is like the thing to do, if you want to get away. And they're caught. Martha comes back, and that's when the incident happens. There's a lot of tension. Walter happens to be there because his father is Martha's tutor. And this man is like a very obsequious social climber. He's all about just doing whatever Mrs. Ivers wants so that he can get ahead because he wants to send his son to Harvard. So when the opportunity comes for him to swoop in after Mrs. Ivers is killed, he's not aghast. He's not worried about anything at all, really, other than his opportunity to basically take over and raise Martha and have access to all of the Ivers money, which is what he does. It's quite interesting in that way because that sort of forms a relationship between her and her later husband, Walter, who we should mention in his first role on screen, Kirk Douglas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, recommended
Fantastic.
to the director by Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall, who Lauren Bacall had actually gone to acting school with Kirk Douglas, and then she recommended they go see a play that he was in. And yeah, I think I kind of love this as Kirk Douglas's first role because we know Kirk Douglas now, of course, to be one of the great Hollywood tough guys. He was literally in a movie called Tough Guys. But and he ends up playing
such a Mike movie.
Yeah, and he ends up playing a boxing champion, the movie Champion, like right after this. And he was a wrestling champion in college, I believe. But in this movie, he's supposed to play kind of like a weak, sniveling character, which is, it really jarring to kind of see him play someone who is just kind of shriveled and kind of scared of everything.
That's the thing that Sam, who comes back to town, Walter is running for district attorney, and so there are posters around, and every time Sam sees one, he's like, oh, he's a scared little boy. And that really carries over because I think, he and Martha kind of have this trauma bond from Mrs. Ivers dying. They've sort of just stayed in those roles that were given to them by his father. But I think Kirk Douglas does an amazing job of playing that role of like the scared little boy, but he also does sort of try to bring that toughness to it. And I think that adds a lot to that character where he's not completely a pushover. I mean, he's always drinking to kind of deal with his relationship with Martha, to whom he's married, but you can tell that she doesn't really love him. It's just kind of like circumstantial, and they have this secret that ties them together. And so it's an interesting dynamic. And, Martha, of course, played by Barbara Stanwyck, who is like, I think lights out in this because she brings that femme fatale from Double Indemnity to it. But she also brings a lot of other elements from like other stuff that she's done. I think like a lot of the pre-code stuff is like this kind of working girl character that she played in stuff like Night Nurse and Funny Face. And I think that's kind of here too. And it leads me to a question for you that I have been thinking about is like, is she a victim or a villain? Like how do you see her?
I think she's both. Probably more a villain than a victim, because that's what's good about this movie too, and it's an excellent screenplay, because I think both of us agree that one of the things we don't like about some modern movies is that they kind of beat you over the head with things, and in this case it's not really like that at all. I mean, things kind of happen through dialogue or through little subtle hints, and things slowly unfold for you. And, you almost get the story that Martha tells Sam first, making her seem like a victim. But then when you get the three of them together in the climax of the movie and you hear Walter tell the story, you know that what Walter is saying is true. And you're aware that she is kind of the dominant figure pulling the strings on all of this. And she's not really the victim, that she is kind of the person pulling Walter's strings. Now, is it possible that it was really Walter's father who was putting the screws to them both initially? Possibly. But you can see by the way they both responded as they've gotten older that clearly she's the one in control which probably makes her more the villain. And she does all these other things to justify what she has done initially, whereas Walter can't live with it at all.
I think the question for me has always been like, is she a villain, if that's what she is, because of trauma that she experienced? And if that's the case, like, is she really a villain, or is she a victim of this childhood incident that she's kind of stayed stuck in? And
that's fair. And I'll just say, when you ask that question, I mean, giving you a blunt answer in terms of saying she's a villain, because every movie has to have a villain per se. But because this is noir, you're right. As we know, no one's ever truly, it's never ever truly black and white. There's always circumstance that puts people into the roles they end up in. And that's also another great trope of noir in a lot of ways. You know, you make a fateful choice and then you kind of get locked into the role that you're playing, whether or not it is who you truly are. That's just where you end up.
That makes me think, because as I read the description of this, I made it about Martha, but one of the questions I had throughout is like, who's the protagonist in this? Because everybody kind of sort of has some baggage, and that not everybody is like, you know, there's no like clearly moral person. I mean, I would say of the four leads, Tony Marichek, and I know that's her name because she says it like 600 times, is probably the cleanest one. I mean, and she just got out of jail. So her hands are a little dirty too, but I would say of the three, you know, of the four, she's the one who's maybe the most wholesome.
Yeah, because in a way, she's the most victim of circumstance. She didn't do anything in the thing that got her put in jail in the first place, and then she just becomes a pawn of everyone else. But you're right. You can see that all three of the main characters that, you know, from the original flashback had been touched by this in some way. Even by the fact that I think that Sam escaped town, and as you can see from his story, that he's just kept running, that he's never settled anywhere, that he's never really been able to really put down roots in a place. That's how I think he's dealt with it. He's just kind of fallen into that role, and that's who he is.
Well, I wonder if the incident caused him to be like that, or if that's the path he was going down anyway, because the big twist in the film. So just to get back to the narrative, is like Sam returns to town, and Martha and Walter have basically built this house of cards for themselves.
Wait, I'm sorry, just interrupt. He returns to town conveniently by somehow driving directly through the town, getting distracted and crashing his car. The most like noirish, obvious, put people in a place I've seen. But we talked before, like there always have to be convenient situations to put people in place where they need to be in a noir. Just because you mentioned that crash, do you know who the sailor was in the car with him? I do. Go ahead. Who was it? It was Blake Edwards.
Yeah.
Who went on to direct Pink Panther and marry Julie Andrews, went on to have a successful filmmaking career. But yeah, I didn't know he was an actor at first, but he had an uncredited role as the sailor here. As a young man, his film Blame It on Rio was like a very eye-opening experience for me. Sure was.
But yeah, so that's Walter and Martha have basically built a life for themselves where they kind of ignore this past, which is crazy because they live in the house where this death happened. I think it's better to say that she built a life and he just kind of tagged along. That's true. It feels more like she did most of the building. And he's a lot more he wrestles with it a lot more and through the drinking and that's how he copes with it. But so they've established this lie that they tell themselves basically that everything's okay. Sam is the third party who was there as a child. He comes back into the town and they automatically assume he's going to blackmail them for money because they're so successful now. The big noir twist, we can say, is that he wasn't even there in the end. He left before she fell down the stairs. That's not the incident, though, that I was technically saying. What he was running from is that we find out that his father was a drunk and that his home life was a shambles. And that's really what he was running away from. And so I think, the incident is what ties the three of them together, but he has his own
issues that he's running away from. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It turns out that he wasn't actually there. Can I just say, I actually think this is a really good movie. I like the script, and I think it's well done. It it could so easily have been a comedy because what it made me think about, like, there are always those SNL sketches that happen where there's like two characters who are living in a world created by themselves, and then the third character on the outside who doesn't understand why they're acting the way they're acting. And that's what this feels like. Like, Sam comes back and they have concocted this entire story about what he's doing and why, and he has nothing to do with it at all. Like, she keeps him in the town, he has him beat up. They're both convinced he's going to blackmail them. He has no idea what's happening. Uh, you could easily make this a comedy in which he's just reacting to both of them being insane without understanding what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, there are quite funny parts throughout anyway, but that's just more like dialogue from that time being viewed in the present day. But um, I would say that Sam, the more I think about it, is kind of the protagonist. And really, in a way, he's almost like Alan Ladd's character, Johnny, in The Blue Dahlia, aside from, a few things where he'd been arrested but never convicted. And sure, he's a gambler by trade, but ultimately he's kind of a good guy, like trying to do the right thing and makes that choice, so
Well, that's the
he,
other thing about noir movies and crime movies, that yes, he's a gambler, but he has a moral code that they always have a code that they stick to, and his code is he doesn't murder people. It's not it's not what he does. So yeah.
I just think it's really interesting that he is kind of like this interloper who comes in and they have so much guilt that they immediately assign to him this idea that he's a problem when he knows nothing about it. So he's kind of a victim of circumstance from the very beginning, where I guess that's the only road in America, like, because he goes back to Iverstown and has like completely forgotten that exists. Um, but that brings me to another point that's interesting about noir, and especially film post-war, where it's all about car culture. And like he the way he comes into and leaves the film is like he comes in from one direction and leaves going in that direction. So it's like this idea of like promise for him as a character. And I think that's like this sort of idealistic notion around that time of people heading west, and like you can reinvent yourself out there, which is what he was trying to do, and what Tony Marichek is also hoping to do. So just you kind of see that in a lot of films around this time, which I just think is kind of cool, because that's something that's sort of lasted through cinema ever since, and it's like the idea of that new frontier and being someone else.
Yeah, very much another thing tying into the kind of post-war era that noir takes place in, that you have people either trying to reckon with their past or escape to a better future, and grappling with the period of time that we're in, which after the wars is a time of great promise and people trying to seek their fortunes. So there's a lot of that plays into these movies. I think that's why.
That's also something that's very antithetical to Walter and Martha, because they're not going anywhere. They're
Right.
living the exact same lives they were always going to live, becoming the people they didn't want to become. And here comes Sam, who's just like wide open, ready to keep moving on, but they just stay stuck in the past. And the Martha character reminds me a lot of Barbara Stanwyck's character in Clash by Night, where she's in this domestic situation, kind of hates it, really wants to get out, and doesn't really know how to do it. And then it comes to a head. So it's a very similar character that we've seen this month. So,
By the way, you asked whether she was the person, a victim of circumstance, or the bad guy. The fact that she's the one so willing to murder Walter and Sam doesn't do it, I mean, that pretty much decides it in that moment, that she embraces full bad guy, where she's just willing to bump him off. And that makes you wonder, is that part of what she was manipulating Sam to do? Like
right.
that's the thing that I like about this movie too, that you can assume the straightforward narrative, but you can't really be sure, that she's a very unknowable character in some ways, that you have to wonder if she's manipulating him as a means to an end to get Walter out of the picture because she wants to be done with him. And if she really wants to go off with Sam at all, or in some ways, maybe she's using him the way she was using him in the very beginning to help her escape. And we never know if she truly loves him or if it's just a means to an end. And I appreciate that because, and the way that Barbara Stanwyck plays it is you don't know, that she doesn't really give anything away.
She's so good. I mean, and she can change her tone like on a dime, and that really sells it because that creates that ambiguity for the viewer. And I wonder now, since you're mentioning that, did anybody really have an arc of change in this film? I mean, is it Sam? Like, does he change because he refuses to be a criminal?
Maybe Tony's the only person that changes.
Yeah. But does she even change?
Well, she's about to go home, tail between her legs, and accept her fate. And she ends up kind of taking a chance on staying and seeing where it brings her. So I don't know. I mean, her arc is the only one that measurably changes, but I don't know if she changes, but at least her storyline kind of gets altered, where everyone else pretty much stays where they're going to be.
Tony Marichek, she's
victim of circumstance.
Really a victim of circumstance. We should mention that this was directed by Lewis Milestone. Yeah. And this is a prestige director kind of dipping his foot into the underbelly of noir for this film, which is really interesting. He's an Oscar winner from 1930 for
All Quiet on the Western Front, right?
So
going back, just to say, back to back, he directed All Quiet on the Western Front in 30, and then he directed The Front Page in 31, which of course are two wildly different movies. But also The Front Page, of course, I love because that was the template that led to His Girl Friday. I mean, it just kind of set a template of screwball comedy that a lot of people return to, which shows what a good director he really is. He could direct in almost any kind of genre, but he directs that. He directs kind of the definitive film version of Mice and Men with Burgess Meredith and Lon Chaney Jr., which I don't know. It's definitive in my mind. It's always been my favorite version of that movie. So,
not the Malkovich one?
No, not that one.
Ooh. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. So, and then he ends up, towards the end of his career, he directs the original film version of Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack, which I think is kind of amazing. So he's kind of all over the place. He could really do anything.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I don't think that one of the things I noticed about this film is that it doesn't, even though the noir tropes are there, visually it doesn't feel very noir. It has some of the nighttime shadow stuff, but ultimately I think it's very kind of stagnant. And I think that's actually really good because it represents kind of where Martha and Walter are. But directorially, I don't, nothing jumps out at me as like a Fritz Lang film would or something, So, but it's still directed well. I just don't think visually it has a lot of that.
Yeah, only the opening. I mean, only the flashback at the beginning, in the house. Because that's part of what the contrast is showing as well, that when they take over the house, it's very bright, but in the beginning of the movie, it's very, very dark.
Right.
And that sequence on the steps.
Lights go out.
Yeah. And this the sequence on the steps in that darkness, feels very noirish to me. But yeah.
When I got to the end of this, I want to talk more about Lewis Milestone, but when I got to the end of it, I kept thinking like there must be a horror movie someone could make where the villain is the stairs, because both things happen, both like the first murder and then potentially the murder of Walter because of the stairs. So I don't know why you would stay in that place if those stairs are so treacherous, but it's kind of interesting that it bookends with, the same place of, like the beginning incident, ending incident.
I mean, you could make a movie in which, the stairs are the malevolent stairs, but I mean, that will become a comedy after about 20 minutes. Every time someone goes on the stairs, they die, which would be just redundant at a certain point.
Well, Well, there is Deathbed, the bed that kills people. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it's
I have never seen that.
it
I
might
am
be a
not going to put
Halloween
that on my
film to
list.
talk
I'm
about.
sorry. I'm just going to go with your word. That's it.
Yeah, that was not directed by Louis Milestone, but I kind of like what I read about him in that he walked off the set for a few days in solidarity with the set decorators who were on strike. I kind of love that. And Byron Haskin stepped in because there was a tight production schedule and they needed to keep going. So he directed 3 or 4 days of this. And the producer also directed a little bit. Did you read
Yeah,
about this?
I did read about it briefly, and it's partially why they never worked together again. Apparently,
Yeah.
Millstone
So,
it's Rosen, right? Rosen was the producer.
no, Rosen was
Is
the
that what it was?
writer.
Oh, my
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. I'm trying to find his name. I forget, but Hal B. Wallace. That's who cast
Wallace.
Kirk Douglas, but he also wanted close-ups on Elizabeth Scott shot a particular way.
Also,
or
her film
more of
debut,
them.
which we forgot to mention, that this was
That's
her
right.
first movie as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, once they started filming, and he saw that he might have had a star in her, he wanted to change things to have more close-ups of her. I do wonder how Barbara Stanwyck felt about that, because we discussed how in Class by Night that she stood up for Marilyn Monroe, but
Yeah. Yeah.
word on this picture is she was coming off of I guess Double Indemnity and Christmas in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Maybe she was feeling herself, and she was supposedly present on this set. That she threw her weight around a little bit to make sure that she was seen in the best light. And she was the star of the picture. She was clearly the biggest star, even though Van Heflin at this point had won an Academy Award a few years before. But I mean, Stanwyck was the star. And the story that I love is that little coin trick that he learned for the movie, that the director told him to learn. She was like, he's not allowed to do it in any scene with her because it would take the focus from her, which I kind of love. And that she treated Kirk Douglas like garbage the first few weeks of the set on the movie because he was a nobody. Yeah, you know what? Everybody deserves a chance to throw their weight around every once in a while. This was hers.
She earned it. I mean, this is a pinnacle for her.
Yeah, and she learned. I mean, and it's nice to see she evolved, because by the time she does Clash by Night, I mean, she's very much a person that's trying to help everyone on the set. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, the other thing, while we're speaking of this, possibly her throwing her weight around, what I didn't realize was how early she had started working. But how far along this was, that she didn't really reach superstardom of her career. I mean, she was 39 when they made this movie, which, I mean, even now that's surprising, but back then it's even more surprising that she would gain that level of fame as a 39-year-old woman in Hollywood. But she was at the height of her powers here. And even think about Clash by Night, which is like 4 years later. So she's in her 40s at that point, and she's still just holding it down by that point. She was the biggest star in Hollywood, with the early 50s, one of. So I just think that is fascinating. And again, speaks to her talent, that even at an age where other actresses were probably being put out to pasture, I mean, she was just coming into her own at that point.
She's really the reason I got into pre-code film, because she was so prominent during those few years before the code was enacted. I remember I think I said Funny Face earlier, but she was in Baby Face, which was like amazing. Night Nurse, which was actually, I think, the first film for Clark Gable. He has a little cameo in it. She and Joan Blondell like blew me away. And I was like, oh my God, that's how I learned about pre-code. So ever since then, she's been like my gal. I really love her and what she did. And really like just a long and kind of storied career. Did she have a TV show for a while?
Well, she ended up at the end of her career. She did a few episodes of Dynasty, and they spun that character off into its own TV show, The Colbys, I think it was, that ran for about 2 seasons. So yeah, even
I think she had a talk show too in the 70s or something. I believe
that I'm not aware of, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, The Colbys, I remember that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was her.
Like the mid 80s. The other thing I learned from this, from just looking at the people that were involved, was that oh I'm not drawing a blank on her name. The other actress who starred in this movie.
Oh, you mean Tony? Elizabeth Scott?
Yeah, Elizabeth Scott. She was in an episode of the TV version of The Third Man, which I had no idea they made a TV show out of The Third Man. So that's why I love going back and looking at the stuff that all these people did, because you discover things that you never knew existed. I had no idea that there was a TV show that ran about 4 or 5 seasons that was based off of The Third.
How do you stretch that into 5 seasons?
I don't know. Harry Lime is like an international investigator or something. I don't know what. That's the premise. I had no idea this ever happened. I kind of feel like I want to track it down now and watch a couple of episodes, because
I do too. Yeah. Also, there was a Thin Man TV show which I forgot about, so I'm interested in tracking that down too.
And speaking of TV, the person who did the score for this movie, which is very prominent, by the way, it's a very prominent score, and it runs the gamut of emotions. He's the guy who wrote the theme song for the TV show Dragnet.
Wow.
But that was a little fun little factoid that was interesting to me. One of the all-time classic theme songs. So,
since we're talking about the crew, it's important to mention Robert Rossen, who wrote it. And this is a guy with a history of writing films like this. Like, he wrote The Hustler, he wrote All the King's Men, and all of these are about somebody trying to ascend to power and kind of falling down. And I think it's just a very interesting theme throughout his work. I would say for me, this was a little long and some of it kind of dragged in the middle, but ultimately the script was very good. I think the end was a little hurried for me. Like the stuff from Martha and Sam up on the hill, like that felt a little hurried. And just the end where he falls down the stairs, and then we should mention that, spoiler alert, this ends with a murder-suicide.
Yeah, I have to admit, I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either. Oh my God.
I mean, we knew that there was like a nihilism streak going between the two of them, but I have no idea why in that moment they decided that was the end. I don't know.
I think they saw Sam leaving. They knew they would never have that freedom, and that's it. Because Martha pulled the trigger on herself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So she recognized, like, that was my chance to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'll never get another one.
Embraces her true identity of in a way, it's like she reverts back to being Martha Smith and just wants to be absolved of everything she did as Martha Ivers.
And she even mentions that, I think, in that moment.
Because her last line before she dies
Smith.
is her true name.
Yeah. What a dramatic ending. That was
I really actually
fun.
I did think it was a very melodramatic ending. I do love how it was shot, though, that when we see them through the window. Although if they're gonna stage a murder suicide, why would you do it in an open window? But that's neither here nor there.
So wondering about that.
For the purposes of film, it is a wonderfully shot scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, suspend disbelief and all the conveniences. Yeah. And then, of course, Tony Marichek and Sam go on their merry way and presumably live a wonderful life out west. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up about this?
Oh, I did want to mention good pet acting, as we talked a couple of weeks ago, that they're going to replace animals with AI. I thought this was a good job by a cat actor in this movie.
Very docile, just kind of open to being handled.
As two people who both had cats, I mean, really well done being able to hold that cat and cat going where you need him to go. Very impressive.
I'm going to cry now. I just lost my cat, so I'm very sensitive about it. Possibly the worst on-screen cat death since The Postman Always Rings Twice. Remember that cat got electrocuted?
That's right.
Poor cats in the 40s did not get a fair shake.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a sad note to end on. Do you have anything else that you wanted to mention?
Man, I Damn, I don't. That was it. That was all I want to talk about, the cat. And then we had to bring it down. That was terrible.
Okay. Well, that's all right. It fits noir and the nihilism and drama of the genre. So,
Yes, it does.
yeah. Well, then in that case, we're gonna wrap up the November noir. And do you have any takeaways from the month that you want to
Yeah, well,
talk
to
about
wrap
with
up, I mean,
Veronica
we
Lake and
started this whole
Stanwyck?
thing about talking about these two actresses, and I think, as I said, I think what I took from it is that I was very anti mixing melodrama and noir, and this movie kind of turned my head on it a little bit. I think that I now see how they can coexist when done the right way. And again, I still don't think Clash by Night is a noir movie, so I'm letting that go. But yeah, this one worked for me. The other thing I would say is it's a bit of an unfair fight that if you're comparing anyone to Barbara Stanwyck, that Barbara Stanwyck is going to win. Yeah, I mean, Lake just didn't. Unfortunately, her career didn't extend long enough for her to really have a good enough body of work to compare. But even within noir, I mean, she definitely had a presence. But Barbara Stanwyck, I mean, her presence looms large whenever she's on screen. I mean, she is always the focal point of whatever scene she's in, as far as I'm concerned. Um,
She's
so
just so good.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, a titan.
yeah. So the
And
takeaway from
it's
this
hard.
is to go watch more Barbara Stanwyck movies because they're worth seeing and she's worth watching.
My takeaway, at least from this film, is how good Kirk Douglas is at holding his own with her in his
Yeah.
first film. I mean, I know it's not like his first acting gig, but he does a really good job in the scenes with her. So
Yeah. And we also
quite
didn't
impressive.
didn't mention Van Heflin a lot, who
Yeah.
we already did when we did 310 to Yuma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was also in Shane with Alan Ladd. So he's kind of all over. Although I don't ever think he's a particularly good actor, I have to
Yeah.
say, but he definitely has a presence. So I mean, he's fine, but I've never thought he particularly great. But yeah, I mean, the things we've seen him in, he always does a workman-like job, and he more or less holds his own with all of that.
Yeah. And probably the best of all of them at rolling a coin on your knuckles while you're talking.
Yeah, that is an impressive
Very
skill
impressive.
that he learned just for this movie. So I appreciate him putting in the work.
Yeah, I do too. Uh, Yeah, I mean, it's just a fun month of watching noir films and singling out those two women, I think, and not to pit them against one another, but because they both, I think, brought interesting work to the screen. But um, it does feel like Barbara Stanwyck obviously just stands out, and I think with Veronica Lake, especially in the Blue Dahlia, uh, there's not a lot of her. I mean, there's like I think that she and Alan Ladd have that chemistry, but her character's not like a typical like, it doesn't even feel like a noir character
No, that's
necessarily. It
true.
just feels like
But you could
a
also
woman.
argue that there's not a lot of Barbara Stanwyck in this movie. If you
True.
think about it, that it's more, you're right, it's more Sam's movie than anybody else's, but she still owns the movie, even though she's not even in it that much. So that speaks to it as well. But as we said before, I mean, when Veronica Lake was making those movies, she was in her early 20s. And at this point, Barbara Stanwyck is in her late 30s, and, in full command of what she does. It's just kind of a shame that we never got to see her, age on screen or kind of, come into her own, that she never really got that opportunity.
Yeah. But, I had kind of fun, but also it was a little heartbreaking learning more about her because I didn't know much about her trajectory in Hollywood or in life. So, yeah, bit of a bummer, but she's good in what she's in. So at least we have that. All right. Well, that's it for Noir Month. Let's move on to what we watched this week.
Yeah. So as I think I told you last week, I was going off to see Now You See Me 3,
Yeah.
which you were 100% right. It is feel like Magic Mission Impossible, which
Yeah.
is good and bad. I thought it was good. I definitely loved the first one, and I feel like it's a bit of diminishing returns. And the threat that there's going to be many, many more of these, I don't know how I feel about that. Because that's definitely where they put it.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. if they're going to keep making these movies, they need to stop with the them performing on stage thing.
Yeah.
Like that conceit to me is over. Like it, I'm tired of them talking like they're talking to an audience. Like that whole thing, it's the dialogue stilted. It does not work for me. Like I don't want to see that anymore. So if we're gonna really move this into a different place, let's move it into a different place and stop that part of it. I don't want to see
But
that
how
anymore.
can they do that? Because that's such a
I don't
core
know,
element of
but
it.
please stop. It's every time that happened, I was just kind of cringing at it because it's just impossible to make it feel natural in any way. So
And then
I'm
the like the reveal of it is so fantastical that it's like there's no way
right.
it's going to be the
I'm
case.
just I don't. Yeah, we should move into a new phase of this if we're going to do that, which could be fun. I mean, it's a lot. There is stuff you could do with Magic Mission Impossible that doesn't involve some of what we had to sit through in this. But on a side note, my son loved it, but he's 11 and
It was fun.
maybe that's the kind of movie this is for. But he very
One
much
thing I
loved it.
didn't say last week that I've been thinking about a lot more is that Rosamund Pike is like lights out in this. She's so good. I really loved her as a villain. I keep thinking about that character and her. She's so good with the accent and just
Yeah,
like
the accent's good.
diabolical. I really
Well,
loved
you
it.
saw the movie. What was it? I Care a Lot. This was on Netflix.
I've never seen it.
You should. If you enjoyed her being a villain in this, you should watch that because she is despicable in that movie. Like she is genuine. So that's kind of why I wasn't surprised by this part that I'd already seen her in that, and she was a truly awful human being in that movie, and she does it
I
really, really well.
I do need to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
so the other
forgot about
thing
it.
that I saw this week, and I was weighing it. I was weighing going to see Predator. People told me it was good, but I decided to go see Nuremberg instead on the big screen.
What a tough choice.
It was a tough
Predator or
choice.
Nuremberg?
Yeah. We contain multitudes here on the weekly throwdown. So I was trying to weigh which one, and I did. I wanted to see Nuremberg on the big screen. It just felt like a an epic movie in its own way that I was interested in. So I went to go see it, and I walked in, and I think I dropped the average age of the theater by like 20 years, and I'm not even young. So that was a little depressing because what I found myself thinking when the movie was over was that all the old people seeing that movie are the people that don't need to see it.
Yeah.
I just feel like everyone who is younger than 30 should watch Nuremberg because I just feel like we just have no connection to any of that stuff anymore. I just think that people have really forgotten what really went on there. And I didn't know anything about the main character that Rami Malek plays, the psychiatrist that they use in the movie. And part of what drove him nuts later on was that the book he had written was about almost like the commonness of evil. Like everybody kind of wanted to pretend that the Nazis were particularly singularly evil people. And his whole idea was that that's totally false. That anyone given the right circumstances can fall into being evil. And no one really wanted to hear that. They just wanted to close the book on everything, and he refused to do that, which kind of led to him being blackballed. And I think that's a fascinating part in and of itself. I think that people need to be reminded of what happened then and why. And um, yeah, I just think it was moving. I think it was important. I think it was important to revisit. I still think Judgment at Nuremberg was probably a better movie from the 60s. If you're going to watch a Nuremberg movie, I think like you do, if you're going to watch a movie about Nuremberg, um, Judgment Nuremberg is probably still a better film, but I think they're both worth seeing because I think sometimes we need to be reminded of what movies can provide for an audience, but also sometimes you just need to be reminded of things that have happened in our past that maybe we've forgotten about.
So you took your 11-year-old son and he loved it?
This one I went solo. Although I am debating showing them Nuremberg. I wouldn't be against them watching it. Although there are some actual scenes from the concentration camp videos in the movie, which are incredibly difficult to sit through. But I think important for the movie. But no, I decided to check this one out on my own. Just me and it's actually here's the funny thing. There were more people in Nuremberg than there were in The Running Man, by a lot. The Nuremberg screening had at least 25, 30 people, and The Running Man did not have that many people in it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what that says about moviegoers.
I don't know. It says that old people really wanted to see Nuremberg. That's what it says. But again, not the audience that actually needs to watch Nuremberg. Because they still remember. They were around, probably, or close enough to it.
Wow. That didn't like jump out at me, so I will see it. But
Well,
do you think it'll get awards
as we've
contention?
discussed before, I love Russell Crowe. I think that the movies have done Russell Crowe a disservice. I just think that the movies that he wants to make, no one seems to want to make anymore. He's not. He's kind of a true actor's actor, and I think he wants to do meaty roles, and I just think that there's no place for that anymore for him. And in this one, he really got to go to work. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a nomination for this because he was really good in it.
I'm personally hoping he leans into a Pope's Exorcist franchise because I actually kind of love that movie.
Yeah.
And he's pretty great at it. Did you see anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, those are the two movies that I saw this week.
I saw a couple things to talk about this week. I went to see Keeper, which is a new film from Osgood Perkins. It's his follow-up to The Monkey, and before that, Longlegs. Didn't love it. It was a wildly different film than it was marketed as, which was very frustrating because the marketing looked really interesting, but it just turns out to be kind of a weird fairy tale thing. And I thought it was very simple and not as intriguing as it looked in the lead up to it. So I'm a little bummed by it. It's even to mention this story feels like it's so predictable that it would just give away like the ending of it. So I won't really get into it, but it was, I really like Tatiana Maslahi. So I was looking forward to seeing her in it. And she was also in The Monkey as the mother.
Right.
She has that relationship with Perkins, but she was great in it. I just thought the material wasn't, kind of worry about him because Longlegs was so acclaimed, and ever since then, it seems like things have been getting progressively a little worse. And I don't know if that's indicative of how it's going to be going forward. I didn't look up any reviews or anything of this, so I don't know how it was received. But for me, it just kind of fell flat, so I was a little disappointed by it. The other thing I watched, this was very important to me. I watched It's Never Over, Jeff Buckley, the Amy Berg documentary. For those who don't know, Jeff Buckley, to me, like the greatest singer who ever lived. I absolutely like love this man when he was making music. And this is a documentary, like a lot of music documentaries. The director, Amy Berg, made a documentary about Janis Joplin called Little Girl Blue a few years back. And so she kind of has that musical bent to her. But it was really interesting to see a lot of the footage of Jeff Buckley. I'd read a book about him and his dad and their relationship, so I knew a lot of the material in it, but I really, it kind of like pulled at my heart to see a lot of the footage of him that I had never seen before and hear some of the stories that maybe were a little more untoward that I didn't know about. That was kind of a bummer, but he died when he was, I think, 28 or 29, maybe 30, walked into the Memphis River. It's questionable whether he drowned accidentally or whether it was suicide. What the documentary points out is that there was a very dark period leading up to that. And a big part of that comes from, and this is kind of typical in the music industry, the record label really raked him over the coals with his contract. And he owed them just massive amounts of money, which is why he toured endlessly to make that money back. And that was really weighing on him. And then, the pressure to put out a second album, a follow-up to Grace, which is probably, on many lists, it's one of the 100 best records of all time. So the pressure to follow that up and just be in that kind of crippling debt was really just really tough for him. And put on top of that, he went to Memphis to record this second album. Actually had Tom Verlaine as the producer, the lead man in television, which
Wow.
was gonna be awesome. So if you listen to that posthumous release, you can really hear him going in a different direction than Grace. The Grace producer, Andy Wallace, would eventually come back, but, uh, he went to Memphis, and, a big thing the record company wanted to do was to promote him because of his voice as the next Michael Bolton. So this is like 1993, 1994, 95. Um, so he recorded his demos on Michael Bolton cassettes that he bought and put tape over the little things you knock out, and just recorded all of these songs over Michael Bolton music, which I absolutely love. Um, it's a tragic story. I didn't love the direction necessarily. I thought there were some choices made that didn't really work well for the material, but just hearing the story, seeing the footage, uh, it kind of like filled a hole for me because Jeff Buckley's someone I've thought about for 25 years, and it was just really interesting to get that wrap up of the story. Highly recommend it, and that's on PVOD. Like you have to rent it. I think it's like $6. But if you're a music fan, highly recommend it because no. The other thing I thought about is like I never really got into Nirvana, so when Kurt Cobain died, it wasn't like, "Oh my god," for me. And I realized that outside of Jeff Buckley, I'd never been someone who's a fan of someone who died at the height of their stardom, like that tragic death, like Jim Morrison, or somebody like that. So it was interesting to sort of like re-examine my feelings around that and realize how, people probably felt when Jim Morrison died or when Janis Joplin died or something. But yeah, just kind of an interesting observation that I
I
found about
realized
myself.
it's I mean, I remember Kurt Cobain dying. I remember like seeing people crying about it, like I was walking around and not really being that affected by it, to be honest. I don't know. The only death of an artist that truly affected me is Jim Henson. I can honestly
Yeah,
say that. Like when I heard it, I think like I was like instantly shell shocked. Like I actually think that like I teared up like just thinking about it. And I don't know why. I think it's the only, which I think speaks a lot to where he stands for people our age, but I think it was the
yeah.
only like shocking death that truly moved me when I heard about
I have to revise what I just said because I'm realizing that I did go through it again with Philip Seymour Hoffman. That was like crushing for me. Maybe not even as much as Buckley. Like when we didn't have the internet or like a very primitive version of it when Jeff Buckley went missing. And I saw it in the newspaper like a day after he went missing. And I literally called the Memphis Police Department to find out information. And they're like, "Who are you? What do you want?" And I like it was just so important. And uh yeah, I remember being in Seattle when Lane Staley died, and that was kind of a big deal citywide. But for me, it wasn't like,
Yeah, for
"Oh my
him,
God,
it
Lane
was
Staley
different
died."
though too.
Yeah, you kinda
Because for
saw it
me, yeah,
coming.
because for me, as far as Lane Staley went, like he had been dying, like in a way, like the Lane
Yeah,
Staley that you knew was had faded away over time. So the death felt more like an inevitable thing than it felt like a surprise. I hate to say that because I really loved
no, you're
Alice in Chains and loved Lane Staley, but watching him disintegrate kind of before our eyes, when I heard it, it almost felt like a relief, like it just kind of watching him fade away.
yeah, yeah,
So different in that regard. Even though it made me sad, I felt like we were never gonna get anything new from him anyway. And honestly, that's almost
yeah,
the same way I felt about Cobain. That in some ways, you heard the rumors, you heard what was going on, that he was in a bad way, and a lot of people were saying that he was probably never gonna record again, or at least in that moment, that he was going away for a while. And so again, like these things felt weirdly inevitable in some ways.
yeah,
But Jim Henson, on the other hand, totally shocking, an unexpected death that probably could have been prevented, and he had a lot more to give. Every year I watch the Muppet Family Christmas, which is the only special that has every form of the Muppets in it. Fraggle Rock and
wow,
and Muppet Babies and regular Muppets, like all of it, and it ends with him. The last scene is actually his, that he's in the kitchen, like washing dishes, kind of watching them enjoy themselves. And it gets me every time. Like, watching him
Yeah.
enjoy that what she created at the end of it, it always gets me. Does it just feel like, and this was, later, this was towards the end, right before he passed away. So it just kind of feels like he had more to give. And so, yeah, it gets me every time I see it.
It seemed like from watching that Ron Howard documentary, was it Ron Howard, right? Who made the Henson documentary? He was like, his only thing was burning the candle at both ends. Like, he was just such a hard worker that like it wore him down. But yeah, he wasn't out like, doing heroin and
No.
like,
It wasn't that
anything like
kind
that.
of inevitability. But yeah, maybe, yeah. I think
But
his
yeah,
hard
fully
work is what prevented him
avoidable.
from going to a doctor, which ended up killing him. So
Yeah. Oh man, that's so sad. Wow.
this is
We
the
end
second
with,
time in a row that we brought
yeah.
the show to a close on a terrible downer. Come on.
Well, I'm going to lift it back up by talking about next week because I am incredibly excited about this. And this is like the true rewatch and reconsider template because next week is the 5th week in the month. We're going to switch gears a little bit. And I get to bring a film to the show that I watched a long time ago and I loved. And does it hold up? We'll find out. I'm surprised you haven't seen this because this was definitely an HBO movie in the mid 80s, from 1985, the very middle, directed by Neil Israel. We're going to talk about Moving Violations. And this is the quintessential 80s movie. I think about Night School, the Kevin Hart movie with Tiffany Haddish that came out a few years ago. It feels a lot like this. Here's the write-up on it. The goofy students of a remedial driver's education class find themselves butting heads with their abusive police instructors. So, I mean, it's not quite the same as Night School, but it stars John Murray, who is like the Murray brother I've never heard of. And I assume he's younger, but Jennifer Tilly's in it. And the adversary is James Keach, who is just a fantastic villain. So
Maybe we'll
I think
end up
we're gonna
talking
have a lot of
about
fun.
which Baldwin equates to that Murray, where it falls in the hierarchy of brothers.
Yeah, I'm going with Adam before I watch this. That's what I'm thinking. Also in this movie, Fred Willard, Sally Kellerman. So it's a very 80s centric. Oh, maybe the most 80s element of it is that it also stars Clara Peller. Do you know who Clara Peller is?
I do not.
She's the Where's the Beef lady from Wendy's.
That was her name?
Yeah, Clara Peller.
I had no idea.
So this is purely anchored in 1985.
You know what would be interesting? Maybe I will watch it and realize that I did see it and just had no memory of it.
Did.
So we'll see. I'm actually curious about that too, because if it was on HBO, odds are I probably saw it, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think you did. It's just not memorable. My memory of it is a good one, but I'm guessing
I have my driver's. Well, we'll talk about it next week. But I do remember a Driver's Ed movie from the 80s, but it was one of those made-for-TV ones with all the television stars, like Alyssa Milano was in it. And,
yeah.
Tempest Bledsoe, I think, like a bunch of, like, they did one of those. I can't remember what the name of it was called, though. Driving something? I don't know. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. Oh, what a great teaser. Okay, well then, that's it for this week, and we will see you next week when we talk about Moving Violations. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you then. So long. As always, thanks for listening to the Weekly Movie Throwdown. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And for even more from us, visit moviethrowdownpod.com or connect with us on social media. We're Movie Throwdown on Letterboxd and at Movie Throwdown Pod everywhere else.